The RealAgriculture.com Beef School is presented by DuPont Pioneer. To find more Beef School episodes, go to beefschool.ca. Sean Haney here with RealAgriculture.com, and right now I'm joined by Dr. John McKinnon. How are you doing today, John?
Very good. How about you?
Good. So, John, we're going to talk about heifer management. So when I say heifer management to you, how do you describe it?
Basically, that's, to me, is really a focus on the cow-calf sector, and it's looking at raising replacement heifers within the herd.
Okay. And so what are some of the considerations in going through that process?
Well, when you look at your cow herd, you know, what really is the critical factor is fertility. You want fertile cows, you want them calving early in the calving season. That means catching early in the breeding season. That's going to result in heavier calves at weaning, and it's really just going to result in a more productive cow herd. So you want to see those same traits in your heifers. So you want to see those heifers reach puberty or sexual maturity early. You want to be selecting those heifers that reach puberty early. You want those heifers again to breed early in the breeding season, calve early, and in particular you want to see them come back in terms of their second calf. You want to see them catch and then continue as productive cows through the life of the herd.
Yeah, no, selection is more complicated than just, I like that color.
Yeah.
That'd be putting it very simplistically. What are some of the things that go into selection?
Well, I think you look at a number of things. The obvious ones are conformation and structural soundness, so feet, legs, udders. You want to eliminate any animals that got poor conformation. Then you want to really start to look at factors related to fertility. So can you look at the records of the cows that those heifers are derived from? So look at their performance in terms of pregnancy, when are they calving, weaning weights, that type of thing. If you can you look at EPDs on the bulls? That can give you a pretty good indication what the contribution is coming from the sire as well. But really, for many commercial producers, they're really going to be looking at weaning weights, and they're going to be selecting the heavier heifers that are coming out of their herds. And really, when they're doing that, they're using that weaning weight as a proxy. It's going to give them an indication that they're selecting for superior growth in those animals, so the superior genetics for growth, superior milk production in the cows. And also those heavier heifers are really going to be older animals, right? So they're the ones that are going to be born earlier. And these are heritable traits. So selection for puberty, selection for early calving. If you can do that, you're really selecting for fertility in that herd.
Okay, John. So now in today's ag world, we talk a lot more about big data. And in sports, we talk about using analytics to support player selection or evaluation. What role does big data, as I'm using air quotes, what role does that play in heifer selection?
Well, it certainly can have a role in terms of, and when you say big data, I guess to me, when we're talking heifer selection, there's various levels of big data. So there's big data at the cow-calf side of things. So is a producer keeping records on the cows? Are they following cows through the calving season? When are they calving? Birth weights, weaning weights, etc. So that's one level of big data. There's also, when you go back to breed associations, to EPDs, sire selection. So that's another level of big data. But really at the point where we're selecting these heifers in commercial herds, you really want to be looking at the performance of those cows that you're selecting those heifers from. How are they performing in your herd, and really be selecting heifers that have a history from the dam side of fertility.
Right. So John, after we've selected those heifers, what's next?
Okay, in today's world, it's common that we're calving these heifers out as 2-year-olds. So that means that we're really breeding them at 14 to 15 months of age. And that really starts to set up then some of the targets that we look at. So we're going to develop these heifers to be bred at 14 to 15 months of age. We're going to need to develop them to a certain breeding weight. And what's critical about that is we want as many of those heifers as possible to have obtained puberty. Okay, that's really critical. Puberty means that they're sexually mature, that they've got a functioning reproductive tract, and they are ready to be bred, okay? Biologically ready to be bred. So we need to make sure that we get as many of those heifers to a critical breeding weight as possible. And of course, the timing of breeding is going to be reflected down the road in terms of when we want to calve them out, okay? So just as an example, if we're looking at March, April calving, we're probably breeding somewhere around mid-June. If we're May, June calving, we're probably breeding somewhere around mid-August type of thing. So, our calving season is really going to dictate when we want those bulls to be turned out with them. But when those bulls are turned out, they need to be at a certain age, 14 to 15 months, and they need to be at a certain weight. Historically, we've probably used the number 60 to 65% of mature weight at breeding. Okay, so 1,400 pound cow, that probably means 850 to 900 pounds, right? And you start to think about that, and a lot of research has been done in this area. 850 to 900 pounds, that's pretty heavy in terms of weight at puberty, okay? And really what we found is as we've been selecting for these heavier and heavier cows, puberty hasn't moved up with those weights. They are still hitting puberty at lighter weights. And so a lot of the research that's been done in the United States and here in Canada at the Western Beef Development Center has been looking at can you breed heifers at anywhere from 50 to 55% of mature weight and still have heifers that go on to long lifetime productivity in the herd. Just as an example, Western Beef Development Center, Dr. Bart Lardner, he's been looking at 55% of mature weight, and they found that program to be working very successful.
So the risk of breeding too early is that the heifer, when it becomes a cow, starts to break down earlier than she normally would have?
That is one of the perceived risks. The research hasn't shown that to be a factor. One of the other concerns is that you'll have a reduced pregnancy percentage because you just don't have heifer cycling, okay? So, producers have to decide what weight do they want to target on their heifers. Is it 55% of mature weight? Is it 65% or somewhere in the middle? But once they do decide on that weight, then they have to set up a feeding program, okay? So you've got your weaning date and your weaning weight. You've got breeding date and a breeding weight. So you've got X number of days in between and you've got X number of pounds to put on. Is it 300 pounds? Is it 350 pounds? But that really sets up your feeding program, right? So if you've got, as an example, 300 pounds to put on, and just for ease of number, if you've got 150 days to do it, well, that works out to 2 pounds a day gain that you would have to develop over that course, okay? Now, you may not have to have that higher rate of gain. It may be somewhere around 1.2 to 1.5 pounds per day is more typical for these types of animals. But that feeding program is going to have a wintering component to it, and it's going to have a period on grass in the spring before the bulls have turned out with them. So you have to really target a winter feeding program in a dry lot situation, or if you're extensive grazing, determine a rate of gain under those scenarios, and then you'll have a rate of gain as well under your pasture in the spring.
Yeah, so let's talk about not the pasture, but the feeding component. What are the components of that ration to achieve those daily gains that you're looking for?
Okay, well, when we're looking at that component of it, and if we're targeting, say, 1.5 pounds a day gain on these animals, really what we're looking at is developing their frame. We're trying to put muscle on them. We're really trying to develop them from weaning, where they're not sexually mature, through to the point where they've achieved puberty. And so we're growing them out, okay? We don't want to put fat on them. We're not a feedlot situation where we're just putting on frame and muscle. So, you know, a pound and a half a day gain, we're going to be looking at developing a ration that supplies energy in the form of TDN. So we're probably looking at a ration that's somewhere around, depending on winter conditions, probably I would say anywhere from 62 to 65% TDN. Our crude protein content is going to be somewhere around probably 11.5 to 12%. We're going to have a mineral vitamin program that supplies both the macro minerals as well as the trace minerals in there. And of course, that energy and protein, that can come from a variety of feeds. It can come from whether it's hay, whether it's an alfalfa grass hay or a grass hay that's been put up, that it could be supplemented with energy in the terms of barley or corn grain or grain screening pellets, a variety of energy supplements that would be out there that may or may not need to supply a protein supplement such as canola meal or wheat distillers grains or a commercial protein supplement. We could also look at supplying that energy in the form of silages. And so in this case, we could be dealing with a barley silage or we could be dealing with a corn silage, which is becoming much more prevalent across Western Canada. And, you know, in the case of feeds such as a corn silage or a barley silage, you have to recognize that those are relatively energy dense feeds. And so you may have to either look at limiting the amount of feed that's put in front of them or blending that off with a poorer quality feed to bring the energy content down so that you can target the appropriate gain that you need.